Okay guys, here's where we are. In the back of my Mustang, I've got like a ton of finish welding to do. And I've also got to fit the factory Ford Explorer sway bar that came on that 8.8-inch rear end. I'm gonna fit it to my car. And what I'm gonna actually do with that, if you'll just look, that's the factory sway bar, factory mount on that side. This side, the rear end has been narrowed, so the mount was cut off. And so if you'll look, if I put the sway bar where the factory mount goes on this side, it puts the sway bar in the middle of where my U-bolts are, which is not really that big of a deal. I'm gonna play with it a little bit and see if it's possible to scoot it over just a pinch, keep that factory mount on that side. And this factory mount, what I'm thinking about doing is going ahead and doing this factory mount and actually welding it on in between the U-bolts. I can't really think of a reason why that wouldn't work. And so that's what I'm looking at doing. That's what I'm gonna try to do. We'll see if this is gonna work. If it does, the cool part about that is, here's my other concern. I want the sway bar has to be within these frame rails. See where that edge is? I'm gonna have to change the mounts. I'm gonna cut these and redo them. So anyway, that's what I'm working on right now. That's what I'm gonna figure out. So, yeah, I'll let you know here in a second if this is gonna work. Okay, so what I've decided to do on this one is I'm actually going, let me show you. I'm actually going to take this bracket where the sway bar goes and I'm going to put it right here. That means it's going to be offset a little bit from this one. But what that's going to give me, it's going to put it right in the middle of the U-bolts, right in the middle of the spring perch, and I'm gonna weld it in right there. It's a little higher than the other one, but it's not gonna make any difference when I'm thinking about the geometry. I don't think it's gonna matter. Still puts the sway bar in between the frame rails, and I think that's gonna work. And that's gonna give me just a good sway bar in the back. I've got a really good E-box sway bar in the front, and so I'm gonna tack that in real quick. Okay, so I've tacked it in right there. So you can take a look at it. She's tacked in there just good enough in between the spring perch, which I think is pretty tidy. Now I've got to try to figure out some mountain brackets. All right, so here's my solution. Let me show you guys. This is the modifying the rear sway bar of a Ford Explorer to fit a narrowed 8.8-inch rear end that came out of a Ford Explorer, so I can put it in a 1968 Mustang. Let's take a look at this. So here's what I have. My brackets are up here. I went ahead and punched a hole through, got some old hardware in it because all this has got to come back out to be painted and everything, but this is just for fitment. And I did relocate that anchor point for the sway bar. It's angled up a little bit. It's not going to make, I don't think it's going to make any difference. The way the sway bar works and the way the geometry works, I don't think that's going to make a lick of difference. And some of you might, believe that that's different. But anyway, this is with the rear end compressed all the way. And I'm going to kind of push down on it and let you see. It looks like everything's moving pretty smoothly. The sway bar, oh, that's not even tightened down on that side. But the sway bar looks like it's working pretty doggone good. Let me show you this. I'm going to lower the whole car down. All right, you see that the sway bar isn't binding. Get it off the jack a little bit. All right, so now let me show you. Just pushing on this. See, it's not binding anywhere. We're good. That looks like we're really good. So I think we're set, actually. I think that sway bar is going to work. I'm going to pull the tension back up off of it. I've got to weld in the brackets, but I've got to weld in the spring perches here, and I got to weld in the bracket for the sway bar on this side. That bracket's already welded in. I've got to do a final cleanup of the rear end. I've got a, I don't know, a bunch of stuff left to do. So there it is. That's how I adapted the sway bar. Some of the hardware that I'm using is old hardware, stuff that I've used before. Other stuff, I'll buy new stuff, just hardware, bolts and stuff, once we get a little bit closer. So the sway bar's done. I've got to flip the shock mounts, and I've got to make top shock mounts. And thinking once I do that, I've got to make up my mind. Back here, I'm going to show you one more thing. Back here, my frame rails come straight. On a fastback, or on a Mustang period, the frame rails actually come off of this and come down at a gentle slope, and mine come off straight. I may leave them like that. I'm not sure yet. I'm debating whether I cut a pie cut just behind the mini tub and drop this back of this frame rail down. That would let this frame rail end where the leaf spring mounting bracket is for the shackles to be closer to where the factory one is. Although I like the way it sits, but if you'll notice, I'm having to really bring the spring up, and I actually need to bring this spring up one more notch on that shackle, which means I'm all the way on the end of that shackle, which is a lot of junk out there. So I'm probably going to lower that frame rail down closer to stock height. Wheel tubs are in, or mini tubs are in. They're not completely welded in yet. I've still got the inner structure to do. There's that rear hatch piece bracket that's got to be put in. But anyway, I've got to put the floor in before I do that. So anyway, once I get this done, we're going to be rolling on it. So we're getting closer. Getting closer, y'all. We're getting closer. Look how close we're getting. So when you only have like an afternoon or two a week, things move a little slower. It's not like the guys who do this full time. I like the B is for Build guys. They're amazing, but they put some time in, and they work all the time, and they work hard. They're pretty amazing. Anyway, that's my story.